and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4. 還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks. Ça, ça, c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco. Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nej. Nej. Man. Igen. Jo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bakbaz. Bakbaz, okay, Bakbaz is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré, des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré, des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and this is the stream where we're going to be answering your language questions, talking about languages and language learning, looking at some videos, and also raising funds for the crowdfunded translation project while I try to get my windows the way they need to be. There we go, that's the one I wanted. A little small, though. Currently, the current installment of the Punto Final crowdfunded translation project is on $345 out of a fundraising goal of $1,200. All contributions are very much appreciated. They help me produce these kinds of translations and things like that. And they also help me survive in what is one of the worst times for translators in recent memory. Yeah, that's better. How's everybody doing, chat? Anyone who wants to donate to that project can do so at the link I'm about to drop in chat. And I also want to show you something. I had mentioned this on the last episode of the stream, that I was working on a new thing for paid subscribers at what I've decided is going to be the $3 tier. So anyone paying $3 for a subscription to my Patreon will have access to this. And now I've recorded the first episode. These are podcasts where I read the translations that I'm producing from the Punto Final project. And the first one is available to anyone who is subscribed to my Patreon, including free subscribers. And I thought I would just play a sample of that so you can get an idea of what you're getting for your subscription. And the link I just dropped in chat is where you can see this. And, well, listen to it, obviously.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Punto Final Translation Project podcast. This podcast, in which I'll be providing audio recordings of the English translations I create as part of the project, will be available as exclusive content for $3 tier and up subscribers on my Patreon, as well as to anyone who has contributed to the ongoing crowdfunding for the crowdfunded translation project, to $245 out of the right, who are trying to draw the masses away from the attraction of the sport of electoral politics. Nonetheless, the phenomenon exists independently of the will or blindness of any given political group. We are witnessing a total loss of faith and confidence in bourgeois representative democracy, which is more accentuated in the popular classes because they see the parliament being swapped out incessantly without any change to their miserable living conditions.
Okay, I just wanted to give a little sample of it. And if you go to the link that I just dropped in chat, you can access this free episode just by subscribing. And as I said, anyone who is subscribing at $3 and up will have access to subsequent episodes, as well as anyone who contributes at all to the crowdfunded translation project. It doesn't have to be through the Patreon. The file sizes are a bit large, but we can figure out a way to get them to you if you want them. So I just wanted to give you that little update of something that I'm really kind of excited about. So how's everybody doing, chat, as I look at whatever our first video is going to be? Okay, where... here we go. We started to look at this. Actually, there's one thing that I want to just do as just sort of introductory thing. Hey, Riveroon. I'm just looking for something that is going to, that I want to just use by way of introduction when we look at this next thing, and I meant to do this beforehand. Okay. Because we were starting to watch a video yesterday. Oh, wait. This isn't it. Damn it. I was trying to find the actual... I thought there was footage of this. Correct reporter. Hey, Badger. Okay. So, like 13 years ago, it turns out. I did not realize it was that long ago. A young actress by the name of Quvenzhané Wallis was Oscar nominated. This is in 2013. And an AP reporter asked her when she, can I just call you Annie? That was the name of the character she was playing in the role for which she was Oscar nominated. And she said, no, that's not her name. Her name is Quvenzhané. And that seems to have kicked off a lot of the discussion where people with so-called ethnic names, which is just, like, basically people of color who have names that aren't just Anglo, is what it really comes down to. Talking about how much it kind of pisses them off that a lot of white people will just not even bother trying to get their name right. And that is the discourse into which fucking Evil Dia decided to... well, first of all, a guy by the name of Woody Ling, who I've never heard of, and Evil Dia, they both, like, sort of are competing to strawman this. They both are just... they're both parting from this assumption that that people are insisting on perfect native pronunciation of names that they of their names or something like that, which is not what's going on. But so okay, I'm just gonna start it over. We watched a bit of it last week, but I mean, this is Evil Dia doing something that really sucks, actually, like more so than usual. These people need to be called out!
What's up, grinders? Welcome back.
I'm gonna adjust that volume.
Back to the channel. So today we're going to react to this video right here. It's called Let's Talk About Pronouncing Names. Now this was recommended to me in the Discord, and when I saw this video, I clicked on it, I saw it was 10 minutes long, and I was like...
I mean, and the thing about this video, I will say, is that it is Woody Ling, who I've never actually heard of until now, basically also assuming that what people are insisting on is just like total accentless native pronunciation of names that have sounds in them that English speakers are going to have trouble with because they don't exist in English, which is already a straw man, and it's already him like sitting here like very rather condescendingly, I had to say, from the clips I saw, saying that this is impossible, it's science, which is like, I mean, it's which would be great if that's what anyone was asking for, but neither of them are actually reckoning with the reality of what this was about in the first place and why this is a thing.
Bro, you want me to watch a 10-minute long video about pronouncing names? This is going to be the most boring shit ever. And in fact, it is not. It is not boring. Not because of the content or because of what he's saying, but because I fundamentally disagree with him on one specific point, okay? So
yeah, and it is one specific point that manages to make Woody Ling's already not great point even worse. He managed to have the worst possible take on this.
Let's watch this video and you'll see what I mean, okay? So let's begin.
I mean, Elmo's over there looking like, okay, we're about to see some bullshit.
Seen videos where people talk about making people correctly pronounce their name. Maybe something like this.
You should say the proper way to say your name.
I don't say it before I make them say it right.
No,
yeah, now, I mean, and notice we're not actually hearing, we hear these 2 seconds of this conversation. We have not actually heard what that means, because, again, this is a much easier discourse to completely get the wrong end of if you don't actually hear what really bare minimum thing people are insisting on and why this is a subject.
I think these creators are coming from a good place of trying to show appreciation and respect, but they're doing that while misunderstanding some of the fundamental linguistics.
Which is already, like, show appreciation and respect? Like, I mean, that already sounds... I mean, maybe he misspoke there. I will give him that charity because I don't know him. But obviously this isn't about showing appreciation and respect. It's about insisting on the basic respect of having your name... of, like, people actually making an effort to get your name right. Rather than, like, that AAP reporter saying, you know, I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce your actually not all that hard to pronounce name. It does not include anything in it that an English speaker can't handle. And instead, I'm just going to call you a completely different name that happens to be the name of the character you played. I mean, that is the sort of thing we're talking about it. Yeah, exactly. It's not like we're expecting, like anyone is saying, you gotta get, you know, if they have, like, a Chinese name or something like that, you gotta get the tones right, dude. You gotta distinguish between sh and shi, or something like that. Nobody's fucking saying that. That is the, and Evil Dia, I don't know if he didn't bother to find out anything about this, but, yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is where I disagree with him. He's correct, and everything he's about to say from literally...
I mean, what he said is already wrong, it's worth noting. Hey, Ata. What he already said was wrong. It isn't about, like, showing respect, it is about asking for respect. The sort of respect that people with, like, white people with Anglo names, or even just random, like, European names, take for granted.
This point on in the video, at 17 seconds in, is correct. Okay, so what is my disagreement with him? And I hope he sees this video. My disagreement with him is over the fact that he believes that they are fundamentally coming from a good place. They are not. They are being
Really, it is...
assholes.
Wow, I mean, it is finally somebody decided to call out these people who want people to get their names right, or at least try. Wow, I mean, because that's been... I mean, the streets have been terrorized by people sitting here saying, pronounce my name correctly. Finally, we are standing up to the tyranny of, like, common courtesy, basically. I mean...
Okay, you can even see it in the way that they're smirking and the way that they're like, oh, I make them say it right.
Well, why do you think that there's that attitude in it, though? Like, could it possibly be that they're sick and tired of people not even trying? Could it possibly be that there's, like, some kind of fucking history here?
These people are being assholes to monolinguals. Because...
Oh god, will nobody think of the monolinguals? Will no one think of the monolinguals?
clearly, this is a person from a background who probably speaks multiple languages, at least 2 languages, okay? Their name is pronounced in some specific way in their language.
Well, I mean, look at all the assumptions here. You could, if you're gonna do this, find the video that he's responding to. He's shown us nothing of it. He's shown us just enough to make it sound like the point he's making makes any kind of sense. He has not actually shown what they're asking for. Like, he's not actually shown, like, I'm sure that was not the entire discussion. And we don't even know what the names are that they have that they're insisting on being pronounced. For all we know, the name is something really easy, like Amelia, Anita, or something.
And then when they're speaking with English speakers, the English speaker is unable to say their name. Now,
we know nobody said anything about unable. That you're just reading that in there. And again, why don't you find out what their names are? Like, why don't you watch the... If you're gonna do this, why don't you watch the entire conversation? I tried to find it last week when I was doing this. I couldn't track it down. I don't think it's on YouTube, unfortunately. But... yeah, and... that is not... And that is an example of a name that somebody... might have trouble with one sound in if they're a monolingual English speaker, but they could at the very least, if they were making a serious effort, get close. Like...
they are therefore at that point going, oh, well, you're saying my name wrong, this is how you say it, and the English speaker is struggling because
really,
they're unable to say
he's
it.
invented this entire headcanon here, rather than just watch the video.
They do not have the phonemes in their own language, in English.
What phonemes? You haven't even seen what their names are.
To say this person's name. And now this person knows this to be true. They know that because they would have encountered this many times before. If they know anything about language...
Well, I wonder in what context they encountered this many times before. Could it be that there's like some sort of history of white people just not giving a shit about any name that's unfamiliar and... just completely deliberately making no effort to pronounce it correctly, while at the same time insisting on people getting their names right?
You speak 2 languages, you got a better idea than most people, okay? You would know what you're doing is literally impossible for the other person. Now, there is caveats to this.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first caveat is... we don't actually know what they're asking for. We're just assuming that it is the most extreme and unreasonable possible version.
Obviously, if your name is like Sophia, and they keep saying Sophie, those names are perfectly pronounceable in English, and if they keep saying it wrong, then the person who keeps saying it wrong either has an issue, and I'll talk about one of those issues in a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that might be the entire reason this is a topic of conversation. Like, this is literally the first thing that he says. And, I mean, it's like with that video where he's like, Polyglot cancels me because I showed her failure. And it turns out, actually, that the problem was that it seemed that harassment was getting she was getting targeted with harassment that seemed to be coming from his comments. From, like, that when his video went up, suddenly all of her Farsi-related videos were getting targeted for all sorts of nasty harassment and shit. And he just kind of mentions that in passing and does not consider for a moment that that's actually what she was trying to deal with. Like, right here, the very first thing he says is literally what this conversation is actually about.
Because it's something that I suffer from. For example, I am...
Wow, then you should fucking know, shouldn't you?
Someone who... I don't know if there's a term for it, but you've probably heard of the term face blindness. The people who...
Oh, no, that is not... okay, that is not what this is about. This is not about people being bad with remembering names in general.
Who cannot recognize a face. I have the opposite. I can see a face, I'll recognize it, I'll remember that face forever, but I'm very, very forgetful of names.
I mean, I am too, but you know what's funny? I have not actually, do not have a habit of, you know, pissing people off by getting their names wrong in the sort of way that they're talking about, because I make a fucking effort. And actually, I have to say, as bad as I am with names, the more unusual a name is in my experience, like the fewer times I've heard somebody by that name, the more likely I am to remember it. Especially if I've made an effort to get it, to get it right. But that's not what we're talking about either. Like, he almost had it a second ago, and he's just run off. He's like, why are you, like, coming up with all sorts of reasons why this, why the most extreme version of this would be unreasonable, instead of maybe looking into what their complaint is, Evil Dia? Why are you doing this?
Even names of people who I've worked with and I've known for years, at some point, randomly, the name will just escape me.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, this is a thing that I actually also suffer from. Like, literally, the example that he's talking about, I used to, when I was working in an office, in one of absolutely the worst jobs I've ever had. Occasionally, I mean, because there would be people, and I would, like, talk with them on breaks and stuff like that. But I only heard their names once in context. And then I'd be like looking for the stapler, and they're like, oh, it's over on Susie's desk. And I have to then sort of like discreetly, because I'd been there for way too long to have to ask, who's Susie? So I would just have to discreetly search for the stapler while acting like I knew exactly who Susie was and what her desk was. Like, this is not what this is about.
It'll be gone. And for some reason, I will think their name is actually another name. And there's been instances at work where I'll literally misname my coworker based on some previous
which is, again,
ex-coworker's name, because in my mind...
Yeah, but again, this is not what this is about. This would not be discourse. There would be no discourse around this if this was just people who are bad with names generally. But, bad at remembering names, having trouble remembering a person's name. That's not what this is about.
Remember a name, I usually associate it with some physical feature of the person. Like, that's how I do it. So I don't know if there's even a term for that. So it's just like another thing on top. Or they're just being an asshole, okay?
Or they're... in fact, let's dwell on that second possibility, where he's saying, yeah, maybe the people who can't be bothered to pronounce specific kinds of names, mind you, because that's the issue. It isn't that these people have trouble with names in general. It's just that they seem to have problems with brown and black people's names. Let's be serious about it. And yes, maybe being an asshole is more of an issue than you're making it out to be here. Maybe the asshole is on the other side.
I'm going to say in 99% of cases, if you're the type of person whose name is not pronounceable in the language English, okay, and you live in America, that's not on the monolinguals. That's not their fault.
Well, whose fucking fault is it? And also, what do you mean not pronounceable? Like, again, this is the assumption here is that we're talking about perfect pronunciation, native pronunciation of phonemes that like a monolingual English speaker doesn't have. that a person who isn't a speaker of the language the name came from doesn't have. But that's not what we're talking about here.
That they can't pronounce it. They literally are unable to. So everything he says from this point on, he's going to go into the linguistics of it, and we'll watch probably about 25% of the video, is correct. But he's coming from the place that these people are misunderstanding. They're not. You're allowing these types of people...
What types of people? I mean, what types of people? Evil Dia, what types of people is it you're allowing...
to basically be assholes to other people?
By insisting on having people say their names rather than, like, anglicizing it.
Just because they feel like they're better.
Really? Is that what this is about? Well, I mean, it seems to me that one way, if you wanted to make that point, one thing you could do is look at what their conversation is. Look at what their actual conversation is and see where they're saying that. Because it seems like maybe it's not about that.
And the stuff. Take a look at this video, which is someone trying to get what I think is their Korean dad to pronounce the words coffee and copy.
Yeah, again, yes, very true. Because Korean does not actually have an F sound, and in Korean, when they use English loanwords, they use the aspirated P sound. So they distinguish between things like copy and coffee, actually by varying the vowel. And if you listen to people in native English speakers, there's also a different vowel between those two things as well. But this is not what we're talking about.
Okay, we're gonna watch this. I actually fucking love this clip because I swear to God, this is like every old Asian guy that I know. My father-in-law is Chinese, okay? And they get very, very competitive, and it's funny when it comes to like language and words. So let's watch.
커피. 비애가 뭔 커피요? 또 그건 잘 알지.
Oh, this one. I'm good at it.
커피.
Korean.
So my father-in-law...
Yeah, you can actually hear it there. He's distinguishing with the vowel. So the bit, and this is a good example actually, because the bit that he can actually do, phonemically speaking, with his like Korean phoneme inventory, which is distinguishing between the different vowels between the C and the P or the C and the F, because those sounds are different even though we write it the same, because English is fucking complicated. But, yeah, so what he's doing there is making the distinction through the strategy that Korean offers him, which is to distinguish the vowels. So he is making the distinction. He's just doing it differently. And the thing is, if you, like, this is a good example in the sense that he's still actually making a real attempt at pronouncing it, which is, like, all people are asking for.
The only real English he knows is words that are related to fishing in some way, okay? Because that's the most important thing in the universe to him. It doesn't matter if, like, fucking fuel prices are going through the roof. It does not matter. Fish is where it's at. So when he speaks to me, he could just use Chinese. He could just say, you know, for example, he wants to say the word crab. He could just say peng xie. But he likes to say it in English because he likes to practice. But he is unable to pronounce English sounds, okay? He just pronounces them like they're Chinese. He's never spent the time learning the sound. So he'll come up to me and he'll be like...
Yeah, okay, so again, I mean, true, people have accents. And this would be totally relevant if the issue was that people were insisting... First of all, he's assuming that everybody who has this particular complaint about people not bothering to pronounce their names right must not be monolingual. But that's not necessarily the case. But also, we're also just assuming based on nothing that the idea is that there cannot be that people aren't pronouncing it with an accent.
Crabber. And I'll be like, no, it's crab. And I'm not doing this because I'm being an asshole to him. It's because he wants to actually improve. He's told me this before, okay? And he'll sit down, he'll be all excited, and he'll be like, okay, I got this. Crab. I'm like, no, crab. "Buh," and he'll be like, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, no wonder he's having trouble with it, because, I mean, Evil Dia is also getting it wrong there. He's adding a vowel on the, I mean, what is difficult for a Chinese speaker there is there are only certain consonants that can end a syllable in Chinese, and B isn't one of them. And so you need a vowel after B. And when he's saying it there, he's adding a vowel. So no wonder, I mean, if that's who's correcting him, no wonder he's still having trouble with it.
Crab. No, crab. Crabba. Crabba. Yeah! Like, that's how it goes, okay? It's actually fucking funny. No matter how many times he's corrected, he'll never get it right.
And doesn't have that F phoneme that's in the word coffee. So for him, it's very hard to ever pronounce that. And research shows us that if you don't have certain sounds in your native language, or even just your native accent, not only is it difficult...
Yeah, I mean, and all of this is true. All of this is true. But it's not fucking relevant, though.
Arguably impossible for you to ever actually pronounce that sound that's not in your language, but it might be impossible for you to even hear them.
So here's the thing.
I would kind of push back on impossible, because I've found it is possible, I mean, like later in life, to acquire new phonemes and recognize them and distinguish them. That isn't impossible. It may be very difficult, but I would not say it's impossible.
This guy, he seems like a really nice guy. He's actually trying to educate these people, but
He's trying to educate these people. Wow. That's so great that he's trying to educate these people. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where's your fucking solar topee with this colonial bullshit? They need to be educated about why white people can't be bothered to pronounce their names correctly. He's trying to educate. Shut the fuck up.
I don't think these people, like, if they watch this
Who are these people, by the way?
video, let's assume they watch this video. I think...
Oh, I hope they watch this video, and I hope that they react to it, and if they react to it, I want to fucking see it, because this is such bullshit.
I think they're well aware of what they're doing. Like, in most...
Yeah, I think they are well aware of what they're doing. I think they are well aware of what they're doing, and so much so that they understand that what you're saying is some bullshit.
Cases. Maybe there's some random one out there who's unaware of the fact that, you know, monolinguals are monolinguals of another language.
Yeah, again, because this is totally about monolinguals. That's the issue. Yeah, I mean...
which are unable to pronounce the sounds of their language. I can't imagine that scenario being real. If you're bilingual, you kind of realize that there's certain sounds that your friends are unable to...
Again, this is not monolinguals versus bilinguals.
that exist in your language. So at that point, if you're trying to force it, and it's not a case of the monolingual not being able to pronounce the sounds, like if...
Yeah, I mean, what if it isn't about that? What if that is not the issue? You actually kind of accidentally hit it at the very beginning, Evil Dia, when you said, you know, if your name is Sophia, which can be perfectly pronounced by an English speaker, and they keep on calling you Sophie, then they're being an asshole. Well, I wonder if that might be the entire thing that we're talking about.
You literally got sounds in your language, and you're trying to make them say, you're just being an asshole. Why?
What?
Why would we even play with the idea that the person's not being an asshole? Like,
well, maybe because it's not the way, that none of this is the way you're describing it.
It's clear as day, and I don't know, maybe...
God, I mean, it's clear as day that the people in this straw man scenario that he's just fucking made up would be being assholes. Wow, the fictional people that he has just created out of whole cloth and live only in his head are such assholes. I mean, it's nice that linguistics guy tried to educate the fictitious asshole people who live only in Evil Dia's head. But what about, like, people who don't live merely in his imagination?
Maybe I've just dealt with enough assholes in my time that I just
I imagine a lot of people who have dealt with you have probably also said that exact thing.
recognize it for what it is, okay? Like my wife's surname. Her surname in Chinese is Xu, but like every English speaker out there pronounces it either as Zhu or Shu or some other random variation of it. Could you imagine if she sat down like at work and just kept like smashing her colleague over the fact that he's...
Wait a second. So, like, literally, this is a good example. Because the first letter there, I mean, assuming he's pronouncing it correctly, which I assume he is a phoneme we have in English. And the second one is one we can approximate in English, and the ways people are saying it are completely wrong. Like, not because the phonemes don't exist in English, but because they're not really bothering.
Unable to pronounce her name. It's like, bruh, like fucking people spend months trying to learn that goddamn sound.
As young as 6 months old, you start losing the ability to tell apart sounds that aren't in your native language.
I have friends who have like indigenous names, and they talk about all the time how they grew up and they were like, oh yeah, people would come up with these nicknames for me.
Oh, wow, I wonder, okay, so he's actually showing the issue here. This is the issue, that people would kind of just impose names rather than even trying. With no, which is really fucking disrespectful, actually.
And I just wish people would say my actual name.
So here's the thing, okay? What?
Oh, good. Finally, he's going to tell us the thing. Now he's been confronted with actually what we're talking about. I am glad I came back to this. Specifically because I wanted to see... Okay, now he is actually facing what this is really about.
What does he mean by they came up with nicknames?
Well, it sounds like maybe they came up with nicknames. It sounds like maybe what happened, see, is that rather than saying his name, they made up nicknames for him to avoid it because they weren't paying him the basic respect of calling him by his fucking name.
Is it nicknames as in they are unable to pronounce your name, so they make some, version of it? Like his name's Steve.
Well, he's talking about a friend of his, Evil Dia. He's not talking about himself here.
Like, is that what they're not able to... Like,
he literally said he's not talking about himself. And actually, I would say, Riveroon, that the people who don't even bother to pronounce some people's names, they could do with a little bit of they could do with a little bit of slapping. Well, first of all, he's somehow decided that when this guy talks about his friend, that he's actually talking about himself. And that therefore he's talking about people not knowing how to say Steve, which really ought to be his first clue that maybe he's got the wrong end of this one. Because I don't think he's complaining that people are having trouble saying Steve. But okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm so confused, okay.
Yeah, very clearly. Maybe watch that over again because it isn't confusing. He said he's talking about somebody else.
But, like, a good example, my mother-in-law can't pronounce English. She can't say my actual name. By the way, guys, my legal name is not Evil Dia or, the God Emperor of Elmo. It's actually Richard. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm guessing she makes an attempt. And it will probably be something like Richard or something like that. Because again, D is another consonant that can't end a syllable in Chinese, and that is something that Chinese people are going to have trouble with, or Richard, or something like that.
Yes, that is my name.
So which is again that is making an attempt to pronounce his name but doing it with an accent, which is not what this was ever about.
So she's unable to say that, so she says Riri. It's like the cutest shit ever.
He mentions indigenous names, and that video had hashtag Mexican, so I'm assuming these creators are Mexican or Mexican American.
Well, why are you assuming? And also, why don't you deal with what he just said there, first of all? It's like, don't assume, first of all. Because you've got the video there, you could fucking watch it. You don't have to speculate. And second of all, well, like, again, he was very clear about, he's talking about a friend of his who has an indigenous name. So for all you know, he could be fucking Lakota. He, he could be Lenape. He could be from a completely different background, not necessarily, Yaqui or Nahua or any like Central American indigenous people. So, I mean, for all you know, he could be Mapuche. And I will say, Mapuche names do not, they do not actually contain any phonemes that would be totally impossible for an English or Spanish speaker to pronounce. People pronounce them all the time, in Chile, for example. But, like, why not deal with what he just said, which is, again, not even making an attempt to say his name? Because that's what this is about. That's what it was always about.
When I googled Aztec names...
Why not? Well, first of all, Aztec names? Like, why not? So he didn't, check to see what the most common names... Like, first of all, you could actually just find out what name he's talking about. That would be entirely possible. And second of all, what do you mean Aztec names? Well, we're talking about Nahua, we're talking about Yaqui, we're talking about all sorts, it's not just Aztec. So what the fuck are you doing here? Like, there are lots of indigenous peoples in Mexico.
This is the first result. Do you see how some of these names might...
Wow, well, that's clearly what he's talking about. He's clearly talking about whatever the fucking first result, and it's AI slop, by the way. This is the AI assistance, fucking auto-generated thing. There's nothing on here that says, that these are common names. And very crucially, none of them is, there's no reason to believe any of them is the kind of name that he's talking about. So why would you do that?
Be challenging for English speakers. All of these names have at least...
Okay, so that's pretty much it. And to prove my point, if we just jump through this whole video, and I'll give you a link to this video down in the comment section so you guys can watch it, okay? To prove my point that most of these people are just doing it to be arseholes, let's just watch this one last little clip here.
So from this Latina creator.
If they can say Schwarzenegger, they can say Había ser.
And here's how you know they're being assholes. I've
really? Let's hear how we know.
watched enough Arnold content, okay, to know that his name is not actually pronounced like that. So
well, yeah, but that's the point. That's the fucking point. It's, that is not the perfect, fucking Steiermärkisch pronunciation of Schwarzenegger. It's not even, the perfect Hochdeutsch or Austrian Hochdeutsch pronunciation of Schwarzenegger. But it is an attempt. It is a reasonable approximation, and also crucially, here's the thing. It's also seems to be a reasonable approximation that he's okay with. I've never heard him insisting on pronouncing the W like a V as it would be in German. I feel like I would have heard about that. I feel like it would have made, celebrity news, and it would have been a big thing if he did a thing that said, I don't like you pronouncing my name Schwarzenegger. It's Schwarzenegger. I feel like that would be all over the place, and that would be that would become a fucking meme, actually. So, reasonable approximation within the language we're talking about, and the person in question is okay with it, as far as we know. Those are the two things we're talking about. And I listened to what she just said. I don't hear any phonemes that anyone who is an English speaker would be completely out to sea with. I mean,
Arnold content, okay? To know that his name is not actually pronounced like that. So she obviously did no research. She's just...
wow, yeah, that's it. She just does not understand. She's never heard of this Schwarzenegger guy. That's the thing. She's never done research. She doesn't know about this secret sauce called Schwarzenegger. Like, gee, what the fuck, man?
made the same mistake that the people she's critiquing are making.
She's not making the... But it's not a mistake. It's not a fucking mistake. She's actually making... This is the whole point. It's a reasonable approximation that is acceptable to the person in question. That's all they're asking for.
That's a good point, except we're not pronouncing Schwarzenegger.
Therefore, it's not a good point. Like...
God, like, neither of these people are willing to extend even the, you know, take even a moment to consider whether maybe they're talking about something completely different. Like, maybe they're completely talking past this entire Discord. Like, why is it a crazy, wild act of Latinidad pride, for example, to insist on your name being pronounced correctly, or at least reasonably approximated? Why would that be? Could it be that there's a history of not bothering? Could it be that there's a history of disrespecting people's names that they're responding to? Like, take a fucking second and think about it.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
You're correctly. This is how the man himself says it.
Actually, in Austria, they pronounce it Schwarzenegger.
Like, you...
Yeah. Yeah, and notice he says, actually in Austria they pronounce it this way. That does not mean that that is what he's, like, that does not mean that that is what he's, like, insisting on pronouncing it, you know, English speakers pronouncing it as. Nobody is literally expecting native pronunciation. Nobody's expecting to sound like they're from the Steiermark, when they pronounce his name. And fun fact, in German, they subtitle his interviews because his Steiermarkisch is so hard to understand for, like, literally anyone who isn't from Graz that, they actually have to subtitle it for most German speakers.
You could take this to its absolute extreme because, like, obviously...
Well, you've already taken it to its absolute extreme. Why don't we deal with it in its absolute most realistic? Why don't we deal with the actual thing?
We've gone from the English pronunciation of his surname to the Austrian. Could you imagine if we went from the English John all the way back, like, debating, oh no, my name, that's not how you pronounce my name, you need to pronounce it in its original fucking Aramaic?
Which is Yohane. Or Yohanatan. Like, there's nothing in there that an English speaker would have trouble with phonetically speaking, so, like, what's your fucking point?
Like, like, it needs to be pronounced that specific way. Like,
yeah, like, I mean, there are in fact people whose name is actually written that way. And it's actually not that hard, and people pronounce it correctly all the fucking time. Not necessarily with a perfect fucking native accent, but they pronounce it correctly. They make a reasonable approximation of it. Because it isn't hard. It isn't a lot to ask.
well, like, it's... people just looking for reasons to shit on other people, and...
Wow, I wonder if this could be an example of what we call irony, Chad.
We shouldn't be...
he literally did not have to wade into this discourse. In fact, I have not actually heard this discourse being very prominent in several years. Like, I was surprised when I looked up Kwavinjane's interview, which seems to have really kind of kicked off the discussion in a lot of ways, because she was not having it. The AP journo wanted to just call her Annie rather than even trying to say Kwavinjane. And she wasn't having it, and a lot of people, and that seems to have, like, but that was 2013, it's 13 years ago. It's been a while since this was, like, topical discourse, and he's just dug it right back up in order to, like, take a video that already is totally straw-manning the stakes of this thing, totally straw-manning what this is about, and come up with an even worse take.
Calling these types of people out, like, realistically. You should be calling these people out. Yes.
Well, who's these people, could you say? Because you keep on making it about, like, bilinguals versus monolinguals. Could it be that these people have something else in common? And it isn't necessarily the number of languages they speak, because a lot of them are probably monolingual too.
You can educate them, but at the same time...
educate them.
They are well aware of what they're doing.
Wow, like...
People who are probably...
I mean, to me, the question here is, and I'm actually willing to extend, like, this amount of grace. Does he realize, like, just how fucking racist he's being here? I mean, at the very least, he's being utterly fucking ignorant. Yeah, they're making... Yeah, exactly. The analogy is really obvious to anyone who stops and thinks about it. Because everyone knows that pronunciation is not the native Austrian pronunciation. In fact, I will say, the way he pronounced it there... I've never actually heard... I've heard his name pronounced in German all the time. And the way he divides the syllables there. Schwarzenegger. It's not Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger. I've never actually heard Germans pronounce it that way. Yeah, realizing that it's Schwarzenegg. But the point is that people are actually giving it a go. Like, it's the same thing. Like, the other example people use a lot is Tchaikovsky. Well, that is not the Russian pronunciation of it. Everybody knows that is not the Russian pronunciation of native Russian speakers. Don't say it that way. But it is a reasonable fucking attempt within the English phonemic universe.
Getting educated here are the monolinguals, if anything. Let's be honest. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Here is his video. Go give him a follow, like, whatnot. And I'll see you all in the next video. And if you...
Yeah.
fundamentally disagree with me, let me know down in the comment section.
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, actually. I'm actually curious. Has anyone pointed out... I'm gonna have to look at his comments now, because I want to know, did anyone point out what bullshit this is? Somebody has to have said something here. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. It is amazing how fucking passionate he is about people just being insisting on hearing their names pronounced correctly. God, lots of shitty comments. Lots of shitty comments. Is anyone going to say... Yeah, I mean, lots of really kind of shitty comments in here. Yeah, I'm not actually seeing anybody say, like, call him out for just how fucked up this actually is, and how just at the very best, being maximum giving him maximum charity, how ignorant this is. Oh yes, the ass diagram video. Okay, but in any case, I'm going to take a quick bio break. I will be back in just a few minutes. And for anyone who is interested in looking at the free first episode of the Crowdfunded Translation Project podcast, that's here. And anyone who wants to support the project, that is here. And thank you to everyone who does. It is a big help to me, and it results in interesting reading material for you and everyone who might be find it of interest. Back in just a few minutes.
Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
還元一級の先というのは本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up, and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedese. Her beautiful day. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, c'est ça, ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça, sol qui sa, che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco. Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux. Surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there.
Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nei. Nei. Man. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bangvas eat. Bangva, okay, Bangvas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, sì, ecco, la gente sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io. I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, but sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that means it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, c'est son chassé. Ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idioma, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. And I'm back, and yes, you know, I actually have a lot of trouble pronouncing Evil Dia. Those phonemes don't exist on my home planet, so I think I'm going to just give him a little nickname and just call him Ignorant Entitled Dia. That's just easier for me to pronounce, and he's being an asshole if he doesn't like that. Yes, I was about to say, Riveroon, like, I mean, for example, like one of the best known scenes of the movie Roots, for example, is Kunta Kinte, you know, insisting on his name, that his name is not Toby, which some white asshole wants him, has decided is going to be his name from now on, and him insisting on it, you know, even after being whipped copiously. Like, there is, like, I mean, there's a history of things like indigenous names being literally made illegal. Indigenous names being banned, people being, like, fucking tortured and murdered for insisting on that stuff. Like, I mean, so to talk about this, like, it is just a matter of people not not having the phonemes to pronounce it right, or, you know, or somebody being unreasonable and expecting perfect native pronunciation of a name that has, you know, phonemes that are difficult for the a person who has the native language of the person they're talking to. I mean, it is just such nonsense. It is just ridiculous. Okay. So, let's see what else we've got to look at. Okay, we're going to move over. We're going to look at... Okay, Japanese with Utah seems to have been doing a bit of a rebrand. He has a channel now, I don't know if it's an additional channel or if he changed the name, called Context First Japanese with Utah. And I'm kind of curious what he's doing with that. And I got a video in my recommendations called Why We Don't Say 飛行機のチケットはだんだん高くなります. And which is a very literal translation of plane tickets are gradually getting more expensive. So I'm curious what he's going to do with this. This could be quite interesting. So let's have a look. This is a short one. Okay, so he's using an example from the everyone's favorite fucking fake language learning slop generator, Duolingo.
Something is not quite right. Wait, what?
Yeah, like, I mean, this is one of the, what he's saying here, what he translates as plane tickets are getting expensive, which would not be wrong. I mean, you could say more and more as well. You could also say, their prices are increasing. There are a lot of ways you could say this, actually.
But more and more.
But also, takaku narimasu is, that's not the verb form I would use. Yes, he is. What is kuromi?
Okay. This one is a bit tricky because you know there's something wrong, but it's hard to put your finger on it. Like, I know there's something wrong with this man, but I can't really tell. Oh yeah, he's a serial killer. But I think I know what's
Okay, and yes, I already dropped the link in chat.
going on. So the original sentence is, the plane tickets are getting more and more expensive. So you're kind of describing what's happening now. And if that's a
Yeah, which is already, this is why takaku narimasu already sounds a bit weird, because it sure would be like takaku natte hiteimasu.
case, 飛行機のチケットはだんだん高くなります is
Yeah, 飛行機 what he's suggesting is 飛行機のチケットが値上がりしています。値上がり literally means price increase. 値上がりしています。
simply a mistranslation, or it's a very bad translation at best because it doesn't carry the same nuance. It should be like 飛行機のチケットが値上がりしています. The plane tickets are getting expensive. And if you think 値上がり price increase is too advanced as an expression,
which I don't think it's not a very complicated thing. And I think personally I would say the badass Hello Kitty character. Okay, I'm very curious. I'm all into the badass Hello Kitty characters. I love Agretsuko. Because getting used to the fact that Japanese compounds words like this is something that is worth. I would personally encourage people who are teaching and people who are learning to get accustomed to that very early on, because it makes your life way easier, personally.
You can also use 高い and say 飛行機のチケットが高くなっています. The plane tickets are getting expensive. And here I used 高くなっています.
Because it is an ongoing process that is happening right now.
Which is a progressive form of 高くなります, to increase, to get high.
Yeah, I mean, when you say 高くな, when you say チケットが高くなります, That sounds actually like maybe this is something that's gonna happen.
Because it's something that's happening right now, rather than describing a tendency. Like, plane tickets tend to get expensive.
Yeah.
And I also kind of instinctively removed dandan gradually, but why is that? It's very...
I'm also quite interested because you will notice if you know any Japanese, you'll notice he also switched wa to ga. And
subtle, and dandan isn't wrong, but I feel like dandan is a little too colloquial in this kind of sentence because I said takaku natte imasu, which is a full version of a more colloquial takaku natte masu without e. And
yeah.
When we speak Japanese, we often use takaku natte masu.
Where can I find Kuromi?
Instead of takaku natte imasu, because that's how we speak Japanese.
Yeah.
But since I use the full form, it sounds like I'm writing a report or something, which signals some kind of formality, which kind of clashes with the word dandan, which sounds colloquial to me. So this is very, very subtle.
Okay. Interesting point there. And yeah, really, when you are already saying takaku natte imasu or neagari shite imasu, you already have this concept that this is a gradual process that is ongoing.
For example, if I use the word jojoni, gradually, which is a pretty formal word, and say 飛行機のチケットが徐々に値上がりしています. The plane tickets are gradually getting more expensive. That's fine. And on
okay. I have things to watch. Very cool.
the other hand, if I make this very conversational, like なんか飛行機のチケットだんだん高くなってるんだけどさ、旅行どうしようか。
Okay. Well, see, one of the things I'm really liking about this is he's doing translations, idiomatic translations of these sentences, and also explaining, how the moving parts in them work, which is really good. Because one of the real challenges is developing that sort of sense in Japanese. So we have なんか飛行機のチケットだんだん高くなってるんだけどさ、旅行どうしようか。Well, the plane tickets are kind of getting expensive. What are we going to do with our trip? I mean, I would say in English, what are we going to do about our trip? Or, you could even translate this as, are we still going to go on that trip? Potentially.
Well, the plane tickets are kind of getting expensive. What are we gonna do with that trip? And this works fine because dandan matches the casual tone of this sentence.
Yeah.
But maybe other native speakers feel differently about dandan, so let's just say this is my opinion. Now, let's just say you actually want to describe a tendency, like plane tickets tend to get more expensive.
Yeah.
Then,
which also is where this wa ga distinction comes in. There's so much subtle stuff around wa versus ga.
You can use 高くなります instead of 高くなっています and say 飛行機のチケットは徐々に高くなります. Plane tickets get more expensive gradually. But then, even though this sentence
資本階級の利益率は徐々に低くなります.
sounds fine-ish, like contextually, but semantically it doesn't quite sound right because plane tickets don't just get expensive in a linear way, right? It depends on the fuel cost, the season, economy, demand, all kinds of things. So a sentence that would actually make sense would be something like 燃料費が高くなると飛行機のチケットも高くなります.
Yeah, in other words, it is relating it to a thing.
When fuel costs rise, plane tickets will also get expensive.
Yeah, I mean, this is also a wa ga thing. Because when he says ga, he is one of the things that does is sort of make the plane tickets into the topic of that is the subject of what we're talking about. in the general context we've already established, perhaps, or in a general context that is to be established. Whereas when you say, like, wa takaku narimasu, you're kind of making a general remark as well.
And this is a kind of situation where you would use takaku narimasu. So context is important and meanings are also important. So if you want to learn Japanese, that makes sense contextually.
Well, we've got 22 seconds left to go, and it's interesting, he left out, I was really curious what he was going to say, because he specifically switched wa and ga. Did he?
And semantically, consider subscribe to my email group, because I'll help you acquire natural and practical Japanese so that you can communicate with real-life Japanese people or enjoy Japanese media such as family-friendly anime. So
is that Kuromi there?
Click on the link on the screen or in the...
Okay. I mean, I think that's that is a very useful approach to take, because I mean, one of the things that was really important to me in sort of developing my instinct in Japanese is precisely looking at Japanese sentences and idiomatic translations of them, or the other way around, because you start to get a sense of how these kinds of equivalencies work, because it's not a really straightforward thing a lot of the time. Now, I notice here's a comprehensible input channel this is just stuff that showed up in my recommendations. This is I speak only Russian, but you'll understand Park Walk. So she's doing like comprehensible input for beginners, it sounds like. And so I'm kind of curious what we're going to find. I'm going to drop the link in chat in just a second, as soon as I have it here.
Привет.
Okay, first thing, we've got English and Russian subs. I'm a fan of bilingual subs. Like, I mean, right now I'm watching, there's a Turkish drama on Netflix called Graveyard that's actually fairly good. And, I have it with, Turkish and German subtitles. And I find it very helpful. So we've got...
Сегодня я хочу пригласить тебя, hello, на прогулку по красивейшему тайскому парку. Здесь чудесно.
Okay, so... Simple Russian, spoken relatively slowly and with bilingual subs.
Здесь хочется дышать, потому что в Бангкоке воздух не очень чистый, но в парке просто потрясающе. Я буду идти пешком.
I mean, some really, some high-level words, потрясающе. That is not a word that you usually hear being taught to beginners, but there's no reason it shouldn't be, really. Like, a lot of the way that we think of, like, advanced vocabulary does not, I mean, it's just categories we've made up that make sense in some ways and don't make sense in others.
Смотри, какая красота. Так умиротворяюще и прекрасно, что не хочется уходить отсюда никуда. Пойдем погуляем. Я иду пешком. Я иду.
Okay, so our introduction is actually more complicated Russian, but now we're in the main event, and...
А он едет на скутере. Дима, ты едешь на скутере? Дима едет на скутере. Дима съехал с горки на скутере.
Okay. So we've switched over, like, her first, like, she was saying some very advanced words, like, умиротворяюще. Nice long one. Russian does go in for some long words. Is that literally means, like, peace creating. Умиротворяюще. And, потрясающе. Which is, like, extremely, or amazingly, or whatever. But so now, okay, so I was thinking, like, if this is for beginners and this is the level that she's going to be talking at, those subtitles are going to be really load bearing. But we have switched over, and the main event seems to be much more user friendly for beginners. Okay.
А я иду с горки пешком. Сегодня мы будем гулять в красивом тайском парке.
It does.
Сегодня очень солнечно. Небо голубое. Деревья зеленые. Пойдем, Дима? В парке есть красивое озеро.
I mean, personally, I would put those subtitles someplace different because they seem to occasionally be covering up the visual that's important to provide the context. But, I mean, so far so good. Like, okay, I mean, I don't think we have any Russian speakers in the chat. So, how are you feeling about this in terms of, like, comprehensibility?
В парке идет ремонт. Смотри, и пешеходная дорожка вся разобрана. Пройти негде. Ну, зато будет...
I mean, I wouldn't translate that as nowhere to go. Пройти нигде. Пройти means to cross, or to go through or go over something. So пройти нигде, this is a sort of phrase structure that you see a lot in Russian. It means it's impassable. There's nowhere where you can walk across it, basically.
Красивая, хорошая пешеходная дорожка в будущем. Вот птички, слушай. Ты слышишь? А там вдали белочка. Посмотри, какая маленькая.
I've never seen a squirrel look like that. That is a very different looking squirrel.
Белочка ищет, что покушать. Смотри, а сзади
They
меня
have different squirrels in Thailand, apparently.
есть мостик. Пойдем на мост. Солнышко светит очень ярко. Я не взяла свои очки. Пойдем? Ой, сзади кто-то едет. Посмотри.
Yeah.
Вдоль озера гуляет большая птица. Как ты думаешь, кто это? Это цапля?
Нет, это не цапля. Я не знаю, как это называется, но это не цапля. The beak is way too big for a heron. I think that's some kind of a crane.
Очень похоже на цаплю. В парке есть красивая...
I love herons. I have taken huge numbers of pictures of them. They're just amazing birds.
Беседка рядом с озером. Вот он, этот мостик. Пойдем на него? Ты слышишь, как много птиц? Пойдем посмотрим.
I mean, I feel like more repetition of some of the words would probably be good for beginners. Especially because, I mean, one of the things you have to get used to with Russian is that words are changing forms. So птица, you meet птица one way, and then it becomes птицу, птиця, птицами, птицы, and everything, and you have to get used to that. But I think, I mean, this isn't bad. I would say it seems like it's fairly digestible. Not necessarily the most exciting content, but the thing about, like, really beginner-orientated content is that it's rarely the most exciting content around.
Что здесь есть еще? Смотри, там люди, они покупают попить. Но у нас есть вода, поэтому нам туда не надо. Пойдем дальше? Смотри, как много красивых цветов.
Yeah, There is repetition going on. Like много gets used a lot here. That's good. So you're not necessarily. So you have like как много птиц, как много цветов. So I mean, we are getting some structural repetition as well. And смотри certainly gets quite a lot. So that's good.
Очень красивый парк. Смотри, какая милая дорожка. А смотри, кто там лежит.
Кто?
Это большой варан.
Wow, that is an impressive lizard.
Как ты думаешь, мы будем подходить к нему ближе? Я не хочу. Смотри, вот еще один варан плывет по реке. Смотри. А
Oh,
здесь живут черепахи.
Oh wow, those are nice sized turtles.
Очень большие черепахи. Они ждут, когда их кто-нибудь покормит. У меня с собой ничего нет. Смотри, какая интересная дорога в джунглях.
I mean, okay, I want to go to the fucking turtle lizard park.
Смотри, как красиво. Это просто фантастика.
I mean, okay, okay, красиво in all of its forms is also getting quite a lot of repetition, so that's good. Like, there's some words that aren't getting as much repetition as I think you probably need because of the form changing. But you're getting, she's saying, she's actually maintaining fairly consistent structures. So, in that sense, I think this is probably quite good. Because it's like, смотри, какая что-нибудь. Or это, смотри, как много, я не знаю.
Тика, а ты не представляешь, как здесь вкусно пахнет? Здесь запах джунглей. По-другому это не скажешь. Очень люблю гулять здесь. Смотри, как красиво. Это дикая природа Таиланда. Это просто потрясающе. Смотри, как много череп.
Oh wow, those are some chunky. Those are box turtles, I think. Those are like painted turtles. We have those here. We have those around here, but not that size. Those are chunky boys.
Пашек сидит на дереве. Ты любишь черепашек?
Да.
Ты скажи, каких животных ты любишь? Какие милые. Интересно, почему так много пузыриков на этой воде? Ну, и если честно, то вода не выглядит чистой. Хотя здесь много черепах и рыб. Все-таки, наверное, не так уж и плохо. Смотри, какое красивое озеро с катамаранами.
Okay, yeah. So, actually, a fair bit of repetition there. I mean, and she's reusing structures. I think that, I mean, considering that this is really meant to be very much for kind of people on the sort of on the A1, A2 kind of level. I think this is actually, this is actually probably quite good.
И фонтан посередине. Можно взять в аренду и покататься. Люди отдыхают. Кто-то гуляет. Кто-то катается на скутере. Я только увидела, что здесь есть кокосовая пальма. Смотри. Ты
Кокосы.
любишь кокосы? Мне кажется, это очень опасно, если кто-то будет стоять под этой пальмой, когда кокос будет падать.
YouTube won't let you say chunky. What the hell is that?
Кто-то катается на мотоцикле. Очень интересно.
Катается.
Вот здесь можно взять в аренду вот этих гусей, называемых катамаранами. Смотри, какое интересное дерево. Похоже на ведьму. Хэллоуинскую ночь.
That is a neat looking. There's a lot going on with that tree. It looks like a tree with like ferns on sweet or something.
Вот ты только посмотри, какое замечательное, красивейшее место. И фонтан, и цветы, зелень кругом. Волшебно, чисто. Это потрясающе.
Cheerleader likes the word потрясающе. I've never heard anyone use that much, but she uses it a lot.
Ты как красиво. Еще один фонтан. Ой, смотри, какие часы. А сколько времени сейчас? Скажи мне, пожалуйста, как ты думаешь? Вообще-то сейчас 5 часов 10 минут. Или 10 минут 6. Согласен?
Okay. So, wasn't going to watch the whole one of this, but this seems like a pretty good channel for people who are doing some, like, who are starting to learn Russian. That is, what is it called? Alicia's Russian Club. Yeah. I'm gonna drop a sub on that. I think she's doing some good work there. Let's see. This is by Matt Brooks Green. We're watching it because Evil Dia like reacted to it in his way, and so I'm curious.
Mostly.
Okay, you're gonna drop the link in chat. What he's reacting to. YouTube won't let you say chong. Wait, what the fuck, YouTube?
Language learners make the same mistakes for years and feel stuck. I know exactly what that's like, but I found making some simple shifts in how I approach learning and some easy habits laid the foundation that finally led to me making real.
See, sitting like that outside with a book looks so relaxing, except that then your wrist cramps up and actually it's not a very comfortable position to sit in, but it looks lovely to sit like that.
Progress. So this video is a letter to a younger me and what I wish I'd known. So if you're in a similar situation, then it can help you get unstuck too. Now, I know you're frustrated with slow progress or even what can feel like no progress, but you can actually simplify how you think about.
And one thing to note about like slow or no progress is when it comes to language acquisition, a lot of the progress you make is not, you aren't necessarily readily going to be aware of it as it's happening. You will notice it unexpectedly because like suddenly something makes sense to you that didn't, or you suddenly find that you're able to call up, say things using structures that you were sort of vaguely aware of but had never actually used properly before, spontaneously. The change will happen unconsciously and you won't notice it until it becomes relevant for some reason.
Learning a language to get the clarity you need to move forward. So for example, I had no interest in learning a language in school. It was only when I started traveling to China to do Kung Fu did I think that learning Mandarin would help me connect with people there. So I did a couple of beginners courses, tried
the colloquial series. Those are pretty good. I mean, I've never seen the Chinese one, but they often have fairly useful dialogues and
an app here or there and jumped around between different resources. But ultimately, I got nowhere for a very long time. The thing is, my motivation would go up and down, and I would often take months off at a time before dabbling in the next thing. But eventually, I managed to do something which not only helped me to finally make progress, looking back, it was probably the thing that turned me into a language learner.
Okay, this is interesting. What is it?
So I decided that instead of trying the next app or feeling like I was missing out if I didn't try some new method that someone mentioned in a video, I simplified it. And I just said, if I'm not consistent, I'm going to be stuck in this beginner's no man's land forever. So
okay,
to build the consistency I needed, my idea was this. to do at least 15 minutes of reading a graded reader every day.
Okay, I mean, not a bad idea, especially if it's good. If it's damn it, my camera almost fell down. If you have like an interesting reader and it's well done in terms of like vocabulary and stuff like that, I mean that can definitely be a useful way, especially if you're working on reading knowledge. But what you learn from reading knowledge is available to you in other ways as well.
That was all. But that was non-negotiable. Here's the thing though. Pretty soon I noticed that Easy Habit had effects elsewhere in my life too. So I would then start to listen to the audiobook for whatever I was reading as I drove to work or maybe when I walked my dog.
Very good idea.
And went on to book lessons with a tutor online, and I slowly gathered momentum. And over time
Okay, so the idea here isn't so much the reading in itself, although I would have to say the reading in itself probably is very helpful. Actually, especially if you're going to do the audiobook. Personally, I would do the audiobook and the reading at the same time, especially with a language like Chinese where the writing system is not phonetic. That could probably be very helpful. But so the idea is finding one actually useful thing to do. Georgian? No, I'm not. Ara. Kartulichar? Hello, Mdevarich, or Mdevarix. Mdevarix, yeah? Mdevarich.
activities and habits grew until I ultimately became the kind of person who can successfully learn a language. It turns out that this idea of creating a simple, daily, achievable habit is what writer Charles Duhigg calls a keystone habit.
El poder de los hábitos. ¿Por qué hacemos lo que hacemos en la vida y los negocios? Me vystavlov kartuliena. I do not speak it very well yet, but I can read it. I can read it some.
From his book, The Power of Habit.
Well, welcome. Don't think anyone from Georgia has ever actually found their way to this channel.
Had I known that at the time, I probably could have saved myself a lot of frustration. The idea is to create a simple task that you can do each day that will create a positive chain reaction for the rest of your language learning.
Okay. I mean, so it helps if it is something that is inherently helpful in the first place. Well, I've always found Georgian an interesting language. Like, I mean, there's just so much going on with the verbs and things. Also, you have very good wine. I love Georgian wine. Is the X in your name, is that X or is that Ch? Mdevarich? Mdevarichi? Or Mdevarixi?
You don't have to worry about doing a ton of activities, but you do have to make sure you stick with whatever habit you choose and build that consistency. If you see evidence that you're successful by completing one task, then you're spurred on to go and make changes elsewhere too.
That actually, I mean, this definitely works. Like, I mean, I'm doing this with my my Japanese bar prep at the moment. Like, my first conscious hour of the day with coffee right now is I'm reviewing this extremely comprehensive, I mean, I would go so far as to, it's not quite a treatise, it's not on that level, but book summarizing and analyzing the civil code. And I take notes on that, and I just kind of keep going. And I do that practically every day. I take Sundays off. Oh, okay. X Araperia.
Kind of like when someone decides to start going to the gym, they inevitably make other positive decisions about their lifestyle that result in them getting healthier, like eating fewer biscuits or maybe drinking a bit less. If you think the task you have to do today is get fluent, well, that's a pretty big ask, but...
Yeah, and I mean, and what I will say every time this comes up is you gotta define what that means. People who don't have a lot of experience with languages, they often do not, they think that that's a very clear goal. It's not. because what fluent means will differ for different people. Like what kind of conversations do you want to have? You know, do you want to talk about, I don't know, dakkirave buli shroma da kapitali, or do you want to talk about chinkalebi? Different conversations, the fluency requirement will be different because you got different words that are involved. You know, it all depends. It all depends. And then what fluency means, does it mean you can kind of get a sentence out and maybe it won't be perfect, but everyone will understand what you're saying? Or do you mean you really want it to flow beautifully and you want the pronunciation to be on point and you want to be able to sound like someone with your educational level in the language that you're speaking or something like that? All these things, these goals are very different, and how much time it takes to get to them, how much effort it takes to get to them, and what kind of effort it takes will differ. So, actually kind of eliminating the word fluent rather, from your vocabulary and thinking in terms of concrete objectives is probably not a terrible idea.
But if your daily habit was something like always listening to a particular podcast in your target language, or maybe watching a short YouTube video and then reading the transcript for it, well, those don't sound quite as hard to get started. Whatever you pick, make it something that you think you can do over the long term, and ideally
for a while, when I was working more intensively on Georgian, I would spend the first hour of the day reading. There was this book I found as a PDF online called Shevitsablo Chadraki. It's a really total ultra beginner chess book in Georgian. It's so ultra beginner that the chess is so basic I could have written the book myself, even though I'm not that great of a chess player. But because I knew, the basic words, like ku or lazieri, and everything, diagonali, horizontali, tali, and stuff like that, gada ad gileba, I could expand from there. That was a book for native speakers about a thing I know about for people who don't know anything about it, and there were enough words in it that I could work with that, by the end of it, I was understanding whole paragraphs. So having that kind of routine, that isn't a bad idea. I mean, and you can choose all sorts of things if there's enough in there that you can work with. And the thing is that, successful efforts used in one area of the language will sort of knock on because the language is the language. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, fluency can mean native speakers can't tell that you aren't one. Or it can mean that you can have a conversation, you understand, and even though your grammar isn't perfect, you understand everything people are saying to you, and they understand you. And those are very different things, and, very different goals.
Joy. Or if not,
I will say, personally, my goal with any kind of skill, any kind of thing I'm trying to learn, always is I want to be absolutely fucking the best at it possible. I know it's an unrealistic thing, so I settle for however close I can get. In studying chess, I would like to manage to get an ELO in the 2000s. I think it's unlikely. But, I try. So I try to learn a whole lot of theory. I try to learn, all sorts of tactical stuff. I want to see how close I can get. And I don't think that's a bad approach to say, on the one hand, you probably aren't going to get to this, maximum objective, but you can see how close you get to it.
At least satisfying in some way. And then see what changes that makes in other areas of your life. But before you get carried away with adding too many things, focus on maintaining that keystone habit first and make that non-negotiable. Ultimately, fluency isn't about talent. It's about building the right habits.
See, I mean, I'm not sure about that. I would, just because fluency, again, it's a vague term. I don't think that this is entirely wrong. I believe me, I understand it. Like, if you had shown up here like a year and a half ago, when I was still working really intensively on Georgian, I would have a lot less trouble saying things in Georgian than I do at the moment, because I just haven't really done a whole lot with it. But at the time, I was watching a lot of Georgian TV. I was watching Gurmania, and like Georgian, there's like a Flavor Corporation or something, some Georgian cooking channel, and like Georgian chess channels and stuff like that, and reading translated editions of books in Georgian and all sorts of stuff like that. And so it flowed way better. But I mean, it can come back to me, like, as I'm like finding myself in a position of using Georgian, words are coming back to me while I'm doing it, though I mean not as flash as they were previously, because I just never gotten quite to that level in Georgian.
That keystone habit will build your consistency, but after that there's something else that you need so you don't get stuck further down the line. Have you ever thought that learning a language feels harder than it should? I certainly have in the past. And in one of those periods before I started that reading habit, it seemed that everybody on YouTube was talking about the flashcard platform Anki.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't rate. I don't know, maybe people get some kind of benefit out of it, but I don't really think... I don't think decontextualized memorization is necessarily as helpful as a lot of people... Yeah, I absolutely did.
So loads of creators were
apparently the key to getting noticed in Georgia is to not be streaming any Georgian content, because I don't think anyone from Georgia ever showed up on my streams back then.
Recommending it as the best, most effective way to build up your vocabulary in the language you're learning. So I thought, seeing as they were more experienced than me at the time, I would follow their advice. A huge part of learning a language is just about learning enough words, right? So it sort of makes sense. So I started making my own flashcards as well as adding other people's pre-made Anki decks, and I did my best to try and get through them every day. But the problem was this. Like everyone...
I mean, it's decontextualized memorization. You're not going to... there's only so much you can do with it.
Slowly add more and more cards, which was fine until I missed a day or two, which then turned into a week.
Yeah, like for a while, I was really looking at a whole lot of Georgian. If you go on my YouTube channel, Hyperpolyglotting with Elise, and you search Georgian, you will find a bunch of Georgian videos and stuff. You'll find me talking about using the translated works of Karl Marx to work on my Georgian. And like cooking videos and chess videos in Georgian and stuff like that. Nobody Georgian speaking ever showed up. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting to know.
And quickly I'd find myself with a mountain of reviews to do that would become difficult to keep on top of if I wasn't constantly on it. On top of that, personally, I never enjoyed using Anki.
Yeah, I've never seen the appeal of it either, because it's just like you're memorizing stuff.
I forced myself to do it because that's what I thought you had to do, but inevitably, after opening Anki and seeing a huge amount of cards that I had to get through one day, it just killed my motivation.
Yeah.
And so I stopped.
Yeah, I mean, and perhaps he's about to say this, but like, your motivation is really kind of key in this. Motivation is absolutely, if you're trying to actually acquire a language, I mean, and I think this is true with other things as well, like that you're trying to learn. There's some things that are language specific, and there's some things that I think are probably general. And having a real internal motivation for doing it makes a big difference. Because if it's just a thing you're doing because you're required to or something like that, on a certain level you don't care. But if you have it clearly in mind why you're doing the thing, then it will. Then it's very different. If you can see what it's for, then that makes a huge difference.
And I felt like I was a reason behind my lack of success. But that's not the whole story. The truth is this. On the one hand, yes, I was in part to blame. I had chosen to use flashcards and I wasn't showing up and making that happen.
Well, I mean, I would not even put it in terms of, like, assigning blame. You tried something that people suggested that potentially was useful for them. Okay. And you discovered that it was boring the shit out of you and therefore not particularly useful.
But on the other hand, I was trying a method that just wasn't suited to me and my habits at the time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you learned that you tried something and you learned that it was not particularly useful to you. So, I mean, I don't even, like, there's a lot of moral judgment that gets some, I was going to say, Riveroon, Devari is very good at English. Yeah, I mean, and I will say, as somebody who has learned a fair bit of Georgian but is not great at it, Georgian and English are very different languages. Like, Georgian and English, Georgian is not related to anything that is even familiar to most English speakers. Because the only languages Georgian is directly related to are minority languages spoken only in Georgian, and that are endangered specifically because of the dominance of Georgian, like Svan and Laz, and like language, like these are the languages Georgian is that are most closely related to Georgian in the world, and Georgian is the most familiar to English speakers of any of them, which says nothing, because most English speakers hear Georgia and they think the state with the peaches. Except South Carolina is actually the state for the peaches. Georgia is the state with the marketing for the peaches.
Instead of persevering with it and working out something better, which is, by the way, what successful learning looks like, I gave up. Again, I didn't keep trying different things to find something that felt like a better fit for my personality.
And I will say one thing that is useful for, like, psychological framing for giving up, when you talk about, like, giving up or whatever. Tillingborn. I've never heard of this beer. I am curious. Where do they drink Tillingborn? That is Guildford. Okay, southeast of London. Okay, Kent. Cool. Always curious. I'm always curious when it comes to, like, British real ales and things. It's something I quite enjoy partaking in when I have the opportunity. But, like, if you don't think about it as giving up, but just taking a hard break, you know, you're not severing ties with it. You're saying, okay, I'm going to do other things for a while and wait until I feel up to rejoining this one. I think that allows you a lot more flexibility, because then it doesn't feel like an all or nothing decision.
So if you're struggling with learning a language, don't feel like you have to follow the routine of someone online if you don't feel like you would enjoy it. You can only do something you hate for so long. The key lesson to take away here is this. You are in charge. It's not a failure to try something else. In fact, you're getting more experience.
Okay. Now I'm going to switch over, because our one of our least favorite creators at this point, I have to say, Evil Dia, has done a review of this. And his is called Why You Shouldn't Aim for Fluency in Your Target Language, which is a weird take, actually. I mean, aim for whatever you aim for. It doesn't, like, what is he going to do with this? So that was what Matt Brooks Green had to say. I thought actually he had some pretty good ideas there in terms of motivation.
Most language learners make the same mistakes for years.
Bollocks. It's just taken me to the same thing again.
What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel.
Okay, so this is what we're gonna see what Evil Dia does with it. I'm not looking. I'm kind of not looking for it. The last thing we saw was, like, I have to say, previous stuff I've seen by him, I've had a lot of disagreements. I think he talks out of his ass a lot. But the last time, there was one that was already kind of verging into, like, serious asshole territory. But, like, with that last one we watched, he built a fucking summer home in asshole territory, and he spent the entire video decorating the garden. So let's see.
Today we're going to be doing a react to a video from Matt Brooks Green, Language Learning for Mortals. So this is obviously not appropriate for me, but maybe it's helpful for you guys. So I want to check out this video right here. The reason being is if you have a look at that thumbnail, it was recommended to me. He's got literally Chinese and Spanish in there, the two languages that I'm learning at the moment.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even noticed the language balls.
And the title of the video is What Nobody Tells You About Learning a Language. So yeah, I'm going to watch this video, but I've just noticed his thumbnails are so clean.
True, very clean thumbnails.
They are so goddamn organized. Like, check out my shit, okay? Like, this is just a scattered mess. And maybe if I go actually have a look at it on my proper channel.
And that's before we even get into the content.
Not through there. If we just go here, like, look at the homepage, bro. It's like birthday stream, random thing, beef with no shirt on. And
yeah, we didn't need him with no shirt on.
Least organized YouTuber in the world, bro. Like,
I will say no, he isn't. Not as long as there's my channel. Like, I cannot bring myself to make thumbnails for my stuff. I really ought to. It really isn't all that hard. But I just can't be bothered most of the time. So, like, all my videos, like, a lot of the stuff is just streams and stream highlights and VODs and stuff.
There's some organization happening here, but it's kind of a
but they all look the same.
Scattered mess. But anyway, let's watch this, because he's got, like, this nice wooden, paper. It's like, homely type of feeling. Anyway, let's begin.
Most language learners make the same mistake.
There's something about, like, I don't know whether it's a combination of the facial hair or, like, the sort of smile lines that he has. But I'm immediately, if you look at the bottom half of his face, I'm sort of reminded of, of Steve Buscemi, and what's his name, who is in the meme, the Spider-Man related meme, where it's like, I'm something of a blank myself.
Fucking music, brah. Okay, let's go. Music is like my kryptonite.
Mistakes for years and feel stuck. I know exactly what that's like, but I found making some simple shifts in how I approach learning and some easy habits laid the foundation that finally led to me making real progress.
Okay, we saw all this stuff just a minute ago, so I'm gonna, like, skip through when he's doing that.
Now, I know you're frustrated with slow progress, or even what can feel like no progress, but you can actually simplify how you think about learning language to get the clarity you need to move forward. So, for example, I had no interest in learning language in school.
Like Slender Man. I'm gonna say something that's so controversial, okay? Bro looks like Slender Man. I'm not trying to be mean to him, okay? This is not me picking on him or anything he's saying, okay? It's just, I'm the type of person who says the first thought that pops into my mind.
Yeah, we've noticed that, Evil Dia, and let me just say, maybe you should wait for the second thought. Like, you don't have to catch the first train every single fucking time. Maybe occasionally you should let your takes cool off a little bit.
It's like the Slender Man of languages. If you don't pick up all the pages and learn your conjugation table, he will come for you. You'll get Matt Brooks.
When I started traveling to China to do Kung Fu, did I think that learning Mandarin would help me connect with people?
Okay, I'm gonna be careful what I say. He's done Kung Fu, man. I'm gonna get fucking smashed.
So,
I want to see that video. Oh, Willem Dafoe. Okay, I was thinking Willem. But then I was thinking, no, is that somebody else? Is there some other, like, it's Danny, okay. Because what confuses me is there's also, like, a historical figure by the name of Defoe, which I think is actually, now that I think of it, is like Daniel Defoe, possibly. And so that always confuses me.
Courses, tried an app here or there, and jumped around between different resources. But ultimately, I got nowhere for a very long time. The thing is, my motivation would go up and down, and I would often take months off the time for dabbling in the next thing. But eventually, I managed to do something which not only helped me to find my progress. Looking back, it was probably the thing that turned me into a language learner. So I decided that instead of trying for the next app or feeling like I was missing out, I can try some new method that someone mentioned in the video. I simplified, and I just said, if I'm not consistent, I'm going to be stuck in this beginner's no man's land forever. So the building consistency I needed. My idea was this.
Okay, so this is a video about consistency and what he's done to me. Maintain that.
To do at least
I mean, what I have to just note is just how much more respectful this already is than, even with the Slenderman stuff, than the last time he responded to somebody's stuff that we watched.
15 minutes of reading a graded reader every day. That was all. But that was non-negotiable. Here's the thing though. Pretty soon I noticed that easy habit had effects elsewhere in my life too. So I would then start to listen to the audiobook for whatever I was reading as I drove to work or maybe when I walked my dog. I then went on to book lessons with a tutor online and I slowly gathered momentum. And over time...
He's bringing up something here, okay, how he set himself a nice simple goal that he could maintain, and that obviously rolled on to, the other things he's doing, which is good. I do want to talk a little bit about goal setting, and one really good thing that I learned in my ALG journey is that sometimes you just want to make the goal as simple as goddamn possible.
I mean, okay, this puts me in the somewhat uncomfortable position of saying, yeah, actually he's got a point here. Because the thing is, if you can set up things that you can definitely achieve, that's helpful. That gives you, that can help build momentum. If you say all you're trying to do today is understand why it's смотри как многих птиц and not как многие птицы, or something like that. You're just trying to understand why that sentence is phrased in a particular form, and why the other form that you would have thought perhaps as a sort of beginner Russian learner was wrong, was right, was wrong. It's which is an attainable goal. It's a fairly simple goal because it has to do with the genitive case, and when you know the genitive case, and you know that that много all automatically activates it, and that the plural of feminine words in the genitive, is going to be either ye or it's going to be 0 vowels. You got it. And now you understand that structure. Or something like that. Something really kind of fairly simple. Yeah, he's showing this guy absolutely more respect than the women and BIPOC people from before. And I will notice, I mean, he's also showing a native English speaker more respect than some of the non-native English-speaking content creators that he's really ragged on. Though I will say some of those content creators were indeed scammers and absolutely fucking deserved it.
Because I think this is something that I overcomplicated long back in the past as well, where I would have like these various metrics that I would like to hit and stuff. But, as I went into the ALG Spanish challenge that I was doing, there's only one goal. It's a certain amount of hours every day. That's it. That's the one thing you need to work towards. You do that, everything else doesn't matter, okay? You just hit that by day, by day, by day, and you make progress. And I've rolled that into a lot of my thinking overall with just, goal setting. Just try to keep your goal as...
Yeah, that is a simple goal. I mean, here's a simple goal. Try to find out what a thing is about before fucking opening your gob about it. That would be a thing that Evil Dia could work on. That is a simple thing he could work on. Before you wade into discourse, find out what the discourse is about.
Simple as possible. Something so simple that, you can walk your way through it. I think you guys understand what I'm saying, okay? Like, there's some... I've done some reviews on...
But, I mean, he's not wrong about setting extremely attainable goals. And, potentially a lot of them. Because it does build momentum. I wouldn't necessarily even say boring, but achievable. Like, if your goal is just to, like, for me, I guess you could say to the extent that I really said I had a goal when I was reading the chess book in Georgian, my goal was essentially to make it through a chapter and understand as much as I could. Very attainable goal. Just make it through a chapter and understand as much. So, like, not setting any unreasonable demands. And it worked. It worked. I was understanding steadily more as I went on in the book.
Of language learners who will have they'll have a calendar.
And I mean, the sense of achievement when you realize you're understanding more, that you're understanding a whole bunch more than you had previously. actually really helps propel it.
And there'll be like 30 minutes of this.
Oh, we've decided to put clothes on Elmo apparently now.
Freaking 25 minutes of this, then the next day it's going to be 50 minutes of this and this, and I've even said, I feel like that's really stressful. But, like, just simple goals are probably where it's at. Make it nice and simple.
My activities and habits grew until I ultimately became the kind of person who can successfully learn a language. It turns out that this idea of creating a simple, daily, achievable habit is what writer Charles Duhigg calls a keystone habit from his book.
Yeah, I mean, and here's an example. He doesn't seem to talk about that. He doesn't talk about that in the video, but he's reading a translated edition of this book. At least trying to. I don't know where he is in Spanish, but this is not originally in Spanish, this book, but he's reading it in Spanish. That is a method I actually like to do a lot as well with target languages, is read translations of things that I actually already know or am interested in the target language.
The power of habit. Had I known that at the time, I probably could have saved myself a lot of frustration. The idea...
This is why I like to experiment with different methods and ideas and stuff, because I kind of just fumble across this stuff, like I just...
Yeah, I mean, that is true. He does fumble. He fumbles around a lot. And...
randomly find it along the way, and I don't have to go read some dude's book.
Positive chain reaction, whatever.
It would be good if he occasionally read some dude's book, though, I'd have to say. His content would be so much fucking better if he would occasionally sit down and open up a book on one of the subjects that he acts like he knows about.
Choose and build that consistency.
Oh, if you're curious about how I've applied this to my Chinese, so my Chinese goals at the moment is to do 2 hours of listening per day and add 15 words or 15 sentences minimum into Anki. That's pretty much it. I actually generally add like 20, 25, maybe a bit more, but like if I add...
style that result in them getting healthier, like eating fewer biscuits or maybe drinking a bit less.
I mean, there's a hot take in his title, so I'm kind of skipping around in hopes of finding the hot take, though we're running out of time, actually, so I'm gonna...
About if you achieve the first goal, you're more likely to achieve other goals you've set yourself. And the way you can do this is, like, set the easiest goal to get it done.
Okay.
I also don't like to talk about fluency because fluency is not a point that you reach. Like, you never...
I mean, it is a point that you reach, but it's not a point that everybody has a consistent, a consistent definition of.
You never know when you reach fluency. You get better and better at different aspects of the language until a point where for most aspects you're able to just automatically use and say,
I mean,
and understand in the moment.
But well, that is kind of what a lot of people would define as fluency, though. Like, the issue with fluency is that nobody really has... The definition varies from person to person and situation to situation.
And there'll be other parts which you don't quite have. It's like, it's not just one, Monday you're here, you're not fluent, Tuesday you're not fluent, Wednesday, boom, you're fluent, baby, you finally did it. You reached that magic number for fluency, okay? Like, that doesn't exist, so...
I mean, he's not wrong here, but I mean, the point really is... I mean, they could potentially get... But you want to make sure that there is a bit of a sense of achievement in there. If you are just farming XP by, like, shooting arrows at random sheep, to use a World of Warcraft analogy, that can get dull pretty quickly. But, yeah. But the point with, like, the term fluency is it's just... You need to actually break it down so you know what you mean.
Aiming for fluency as a goal, it's undefinable. Like,
it's totally definable. I've offered like 5 different potential definitions of it in this stream alone. It is totally definable, but you have to actually define it. You have to actually set what you mean by that.
Maybe you could say your version of fluency is a B2 certificate, and once you pass a B2 certificate, then you're fluent. Okay, like maybe that's
okay. Like, for example, that would be a reasonable definition. And I think a lot, judging from when people have said that I'm fluent in something, I disagree with them on this. Like, I would say a lot of people seem to think that a sort of B1 level is kind of what you would call fluent. But I would not call that, like, that is not personally the standard I'm going for with anything. But it seems like when you get to that, a lot of people will start saying, yeah, just describing you as speaking the language, and be surprised when you say you don't.
But like it's a pretty bad goal overall, because there is no defining moment at which you reach that.
Well, yes, there is, if you decide what that defining moment is. You just gave an example. Yeah, exactly. He just gave one potential definition. It's not the one I would use, but it's one that somebody could use. It wouldn't be unreasonable.
More like realistic goals, like my goal is that I will do 2 hours per day for this year.
Yeah, but the thing is, okay, that is one kind of goal, but that isn't so much a goal because it isn't an outcome. Like, okay, so I do 2 hours of whatever. Now, you can do that and you can say this is what I'm going to do and then just see where it gets you. But if you have that isn't so much a goal as a process by which one might be achieved. Yeah, these are different things. I mean, I think it's potentially useful. Assuming that you're doing 2 hours of something useful, that's not a bad thing, and you probably will. But if you're going to talk about, like, fluency or you're going to talk about goals, you really do have to actually know exactly what you mean by them.
Or my goal is I will completely read this book, or I will completely watch this movie. Something like that. Like, I think that's probably the best way. Like, something that you can actually action and track. See, terrible goal.
Yeah, but you can action it and track it if you just define what you mean by it. Like, that's challenging. You have to really think about it in a way that people who haven't spent a lot of time around language learning and language teaching don't think about it a lot of the time. But it is actually very worthwhile to start doing it. Because then you start to understand the moving parts that we're dealing with. You start to understand what it means to use a language. These are things that you take for granted if you haven't spent a lot of time learning them. But if you've spent a lot of time with languages and different languages and linguistics and all this sort of thing, these things are second nature, and it really helps you in terms of defining goals, in terms of defining processes, and in terms of sticking to it as well. So, I mean, it's like what he's saying to avoid actually is important stuff. And it's not that I think fluency is useful. I agree with him that, like, saying I want to get fluent is kind of worthless. Because you have to, the key is what you mean by that. And if you don't define what you mean by that, you're never going to know what you're doing. But, I mean, by kind of skipping over that and specifically saying, okay, instead of outcomes, I'm going to go for certain, like, activities. Well, I mean, you can do both, but you have to define your outcomes. It's easy to define your activities, and your activities, if you choose decent activities, it's not a bad idea. But there's no reason not to define an outcome either. It just requires a level of thought that he isn't putting into this. But it is time for me to put a level of thought I have not put into it so far today into dinner, so I'm going to do that. Thank you to everyone who joined in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And let me just remind you, if you haven't checked it out, here is, damn it, that's the wrong window. Here is that free sample episode. There are also some new tasters up, free for everyone. This is the free sample episode of the Punto Final translation podcast. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it, and I love it when people spread the word about what I'm doing, because I have a hell of a time doing that. The algorithm hates what I'm doing. It hates small projects and stuff like that. My posts get throttled to hell. So any kind of signal boosting and word getting out is always very much appreciated. helps me continue to do this stuff. And for anyone who is watching this and would like to make a contribution and hasn't done so already, and, you know, that's always very much appreciated too, but also, like, signal boosting is a huge contribution to me anyway. I will be back tomorrow at 4:30 p.m.